Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking episode 14 of season 2 of Star Wars Rebels called Homecoming. And this is another episode that kind of focuses in on Hera and kind of touches back with what's been going on Ryloth, which was of course a really important place in the Clone Wars TV series. And being the home world of the Twi'leks is a pretty important place in the Star Wars universe in general. Now, this episode we get to meet Hera's dad, Sham, or it's spelled Sham, but he pronounced it as Sham, so I'm going to go with Sham. Now, what's interesting about him is he actually appeared in previously in one of the new official Star Wars novels, again as a freedom fighter on Ryloth. I can't remember which one. I think it might have been Dark Lords of the Sith. I'm not 100% sure. Which was actually Lords of the Sith was a pretty good book. I liked that one. Really nice focus on Vader and Palpatine. Anyway, now another thing that and he was portrayed in the books as being pretty similar, just all about like, I'm going to free Ryloth and I want to hurt the Empire. I mean, he wasn't the deepest of characters. What's interesting, though, is that in this episode, when Kanan is getting ready to meet Sham and his friends, he's super nervous and all of this other stuff. And, it reminds me of when a guy has to meet his girlfriend's dad for the first time. Now, they've been really subtle about only every once in a while dropping a hint that maybe there's something a little bit more than being friends going on between Kanan and Hera. But this actually goes back to the first novel in the new official tie-in novel series, Dawn of Rebellion or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was called. Just John Jackson Miller wrote it, and it's a pretty good one. But excuse me. When this is kind of explains how these two first met and started working together, and it's pretty funny there that Kanan is quite interested in getting into Hera's pants, but she shuts him down pretty quick, and he's disappointed, but rolls with it fairly quickly. But that just might be me reading a little too much into the situation, but I'd be lying if I said that didn't cross my mind. Speaking of things that randomly crossed my mind, man, this show's getting bad about recycling voice actors. I mean, I think we're all used to Stephen Bloom being the voice of a million people on this show, but it's not like, oh, now they're recycling Sabine's voice, and she's not even really changing it at all. That's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. But anyway, other little things. They introduced the female Twi'lek with Sham and said that her name was Nuna. Now, if I remember correctly, that was the name of the little girl who befriended two clone troopers on Ryloth. She was constantly calling them Nera and all of that other stuff. And, you do the math on that, she would be the age that character is now. So, pretty sure that is meant to be this character all grown up. And, that's got to be a little bit of a painful irony for her. When she was a kid, she befriended two clone troopers. And now, as an adult, she's going around gunning down stormtroopers. I mean, seeing these guys having perverted, in a way, the legacy of people who genuinely helped her and her family. That's, well, that seems like story material to me, but I guess we'll have to see if anybody ever goes there. Now, the whole thing with, Hera and her dad being at odds, and then Sham sort of backstabbing everybody so they can basically kind of get a symbolic victory rather than a practical one. I mean, that was pretty easy to see coming. And, that just sort of made for an excuse for there to be a nice bit of action in this episode. Although, we did get a little bit more backstory on Chopper, which was also kind of cool. And we definitely got to see some cool stuff in terms of action. Especially loved the Jedi doing the fastball special thing from X-Men, and definitely very exciting watching the ship come in for a crash landing. We even get to see Ezra sort of given the old Jedi mind trick a first proper stab, and not bad, not bad. Um, One thing that I really did like, and I thought this was a great touch, is when Hera and her dad are talking, and Hera's accent sort of slips into something different. And Twi'leks on the animated shows have inconsistently been portrayed as kind of having these French accents. And while it didn't sound like Vanessa Marshall was trying to do a French accent, it sounds like she definitely sort of some kind of an accent to sort of show that Hera indeed does speak differently when she's around people in the rebellion than she would if she was around for an extended period of time other Twi'leks. In fact, she and her father might have even been that might have been even been used as an indication that she'd slipped into speaking in the Twi'lek language. Now, again, I'm a little unclear on exactly what's going on with what's canon these days. But for a long time, the idea was in the Star Wars universe that there was this language called Basic, and that was basically what all these species used to communicate with each other. Pretty much everybody in the galaxy learns their native language, and, well, everybody, yeah, of course, everybody in the galaxy learns their native language. And most people who ever have to deal with anybody, who's not of their people, also learn Basic. And this is just kind of one of those, okay, they don't have universal translators like in Star Trek, so this is sort of just the people had to do this the old-fashioned way, just so that people don't have to spend all this time worrying about the nuts and bolts of how all these aliens can constantly talk to each other. And that makes as much sense as anything. I mean, it's one of those things that kind of a hand wave, but it's one of those nuts and bolts things that as long as you offer at least a halfway plausible excuse to get it out of the way, then only the most ridiculously unreasonable fanboy is going to gripe about it. Let's see, what else? I was a little disappointed, though, that everybody kind of got what they wanted in the end. I really think it would have been a lot better if Sham hadn't gotten that Imperial warship getting blown up over Ryloth. They're actually having to be a price. Somebody having to walk away from the situation unhappy. In my mind, that would have been a stronger story. But in all fairness, it has been presented that in the rebellion there were a lot of Twi'leks who, as they stated for reasons in this episode, basically felt like the Empire, the Republic/Empire, had backstabbed them. Twi'leks being sold into slavery by the Empire was a really common thing. The fat blue Twi'lek senator guy, who's obviously just a corrupt puppet of the Emperor, is sort of what passes for the government on their planet, which does nothing but aid the Empire in exploiting the Twi'lek people. So it's no wonder that a lot of Twi'leks did end up joining the rebellion, and this would be a real boost for that idea. So, while I would have liked somebody to walk away from that situation unhappy, I can live with this. And Sham and his friends backstabbing the rebels, that got forgiven pretty easily, but they did only hurt people. They did only do this to people who were basically Hera's close friends, and probably would have been willing to overlook that situation for her sake. And we get a touching but rather cliche, father-daughter bonding moment at the end. And I'm like, oh god, he's gonna tell her that she reminds him of she reminds him of her mother, and of course that's exactly what Sham says. It's like, come on. So yeah, we got a few more cliches trotted out this episode than really I would have cared for, but it's still a reasonably fun episode. Not the strongest of this season, But it was definitely a nice insight into Hera's background, a little bit more information about like what the situation on Ryloth is these days. And it was pretty cool to, if I'm correct, get to see Nuna again, sort of subtly sort of follow up on a much loved episode from Clone Wars. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. You can also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.